that is probably a great resort to key on, because that made the transition into the condo aspect of our business.
All right, episode 25 of the Deal Ranch podcast. Matthew Brittain, we're here in your office. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. But you guys are a legendary resort operator and manager here in Myrtle Beach in Horry County in South Carolina. So roughly 2,500 units under management and 10 plus resorts that you guys operate and manage. So really love to hear the history of the business today. But do you want to give a little bit of an intro on yourself and your role as CEO here?
Sure. I'm the CEO of BR&H. We're a family business, still are a family business. My father and mother had 10 grandchildren, and unfortunately, although they're all fairly successful, none of them are interested in this business. So we will not have a legacy, we don't think. That can always change, but right. We see ourselves as a family business, and I grew up working in an inn, a small inn in Myrtle Beach, as I grew up in the 60s and 70s, doing odd jobs around the hotel. And from there, went to college at Chapel Hill, and then did some graduate work overseas and at USC in Columbia in what's called the MIBS program, which is an international business program. And I then went to work for Manor Care, which is the Choice Hotel Company. At the time, they were in Silver Spring, Maryland. They've since moved to Rockville. But I spent 2 wonderful years living in D.C. and commuting out to Silver Spring. And I'm not sure what I would pay to go back to that. It's definitely something. And then my father called me one day and said, "Hey, I know you're happy up there, but I have this job managing a resort here in Myrtle Beach. Are you interested?" And the call more of family than the job. I was happy with my career, but being around family and coming back to Myrtle Beach was an option, so I took it and came back and started managing one of the resorts. And
the rest is history.
The rest is sort of history. I had a brother older than I am, more capable than I am, that ran the company after my father transitioned, and he passed away in 2011, and then that's when I kind of moved into a senior position with the hotel company.
Okay, so to give people listening an overview of kind of, and we can go back into the Chesterfield Inn as well and hear the progression, but what is the best overview of the business today as you see it? Like, can you kind of break down? Certainly.
We are in a very unique niche market of the hospitality industry. A phrase that has been used is called OPMA, is on-premise management, and that was an organization that's no longer here, but it was a organization that represented companies like mine that had a presence in a condo hotel with a front desk. They normally manage the restaurants, gift shops, spas, and other commercial areas in the condo, and then have a rental program as well. And they oftentimes support the HOA or the owners of the condominium in the day-to-day upkeep and maintenance of the property. And that is us to a T. That is where we cut our teeth. And to understand how that happened, when we were young, we weren't very smart and we were poor. So we had to team up with successful people, and we did that. And we bought old hotels because we couldn't afford new ones. And we took them and ran them long enough to pay down the debt enough to then look at renovating them. And not to be too hard on banks, but they can be somewhat capricious when they look to finance hotels, and there's good times and bad times. And we we're in a period where getting a bank to finance a project could be difficult, and that's when we first got introduced to the condominium process, where your cost of capital just plummeted because owners took that role. Of course, the difficulty there that you have is instead of having one bank to answer to, you have hundreds of homeowners that are your partners, and that is how we look at them. But we were able to finesse that. We weren't really developers in the normal sense of the word. We would identify a project, we would draw the project, we would get it ready, and then we would oftentimes bring in true developers that took the risk for the project. So we would hand over a old hotel, sell it to the developer, with a set of plans that we then inherited the commercial units back from. So we could make a little money in the sale of the hotel, but then we had a cash flow after the sale of running the commercial units of the hotel and the rental program. And it's a great model. The internal rate of return on that is fantastic. And as long as it works, it's great. You have to have a healthy condominium sales market. You have to have good construction prices. You have to have interest rates where they need to be. But as you know, that has been the case up until recently, and so it was a very productive model, and we've benefited from that for sure.
Wow. So I can better understand that. I guess when you guys started doing that, in 43, your great uncle starts
Correct.
the Chesterfield Inn, and that he developed it or built it, owned and operated it. That's where
Correct.
You work? Okay. What and then?
Yeah, my dad.
What was the transition after?
My dad was in high school and college during that time, and he would come down in the summers and help my uncle at first as a young nephew, and then later as a hotel manager. So he managed for my uncle. And then later, my uncle sold the hotel to his son, my great uncle's son, and my dad. So they were business partners. And my dad and my great uncle were business partners in several things in Myrtle Beach. The Sea Captain's House restaurant being one of them, and they were business partners for many years.
So from after that Sea Captain's House, I think your dad may have acquired the Second Ave Pier and swapped it for the Sea Captain's House or something?
He acquired the Second Ave. He and my great uncle bought the Second Avenue Pier. I think the pier business was maybe greener from the other side, and they ended up switching the pier for what was then a bed and breakfast is the best description.
Okay.
It had maybe 9 rooms, and they rented them out, and they purchased that with the idea of building a hotel there. So they were going to obtain financing and build a hotel. And that just never happened. Other things came up. Other hotels were purchased. And Sea Captain's has been there for 62 years now. So,
what was the progression after that? What was the next? Like, how did they, I guess, kind of what is the story as it goes? So like, they do this deal, the Sea Captain's House. What was their next big project? When did we phase into the hotel model you're talking about?
That occurred in the 80s, and we purchased, and when I say we, my family, my uncle, my great uncle, and my dad purchased the Sea Island and the Sandpiper, which were 2 side-by-side hotels up on around 62nd Avenue, and they transformed those into an American plan inn. They were motels, and we built a restaurant in the middle of them and served. It's not very familiar today, but the American plan or modified American plan is where your meals and your hotel room are purchased together. That used to be all hotels.
Was that very common especially down here at the beach?
It was more common here. Okay. It's very common in Bermuda, for example, and other specific places. And then there are hotels all over the world, including New York and other places that offered that. As you go back in time, it's more frequent. as you move forward, Holiday Inns kind of set a delineating line that post that, less restaurants were a must in a hotel than before.
So what did they, after those two properties were acquired, how many units were they? Was that a massive deal for
No,
them at
it
the
was
time?
not.
Okay.
It was more in the 220, 230, both of the hotels together, I think total somewhere around that
Got
number.
it. Then what was their next big project or model after that? Were they going to try to keep replicating that?
That one was successful. The hotel did well, and our next big project was the Caribbean, which is the hotel in front of us now, and that one was one that the sons did more than the parents. So we purchased the Caribbean. It was an older hotel. It was desperately needed to be renovated. And we did not have the balance sheet to do that. So we had to eke out a loan and eke out an existence of paying down that loan. Mm-hmm. As the story is as old as hotels, that you're buying an older hotel and you're just making your payments and you're getting ready. And at that point, we teamed up. And it's not a good word these days, with a patriarch in Myrtle Beach who had a great balance sheet and was willing to let us manage it because we were fairly industrious, and he had some know-how that helped us to transform it. So we were able to get a bank loan, and we were able to build a modern, tear down part of that hotel, not all of it, but part of it, and do your traditional, that was pre-condo.
Wow.
Do your traditional bank financing, and we built a 13-story tower there. Yep. With modern units. And that did very well. And that is probably a great resort to key on, because that made the transition into the condo aspect of our business. As that property matured, the second half aged out and needed to be replaced. So at that time, banks were not as
late yet.
It was tougher to get a bank loan, and the condominium craze, or the condominium interest, had moved from Europe. I think it matured in Europe before it ever really came to the United States. That's not a part of my history that I'm qualified to speak on. But
that's okay.
But I think that's what happened. And then Florida, California became very successful condominium markets where they were sold, and either people lived in them or rented them. And it finally reached Myrtle Beach, and that was when we initiated one of our first condominium projects. Around the same time, we got involved with a resort called Long Bay with another patriarch, very successful Myrtle Beach hotelier. He was from Virginia, George Buchanan, but he kind of did the same thing with us in providing a stiff balance sheet, and but we did the same thing. We ended up teaming up. That's probably the first one where we did more of the development. That's the first one. Caribbean, we didn't do the development. We passed it to a developer. Long Bay, we have from time to time done the development ourselves.
Fascinating. So to key in on the Caribbean for a minute. So it was a smaller resort at the time that you guys bought, and it was a tear down? Okay.
Correct.
And then for the development, you brought that just to a different developer who had the money to put the deal together, and you guys just kind of almost underwrote the deal and put a management contract in place?
It might be better to say that we drew the deal, right? We had a concept for what we wanted there. And with condos, you need a certain space to survive the transformation. So you need maids' closets that are commercial units, not common units. You need restaurants, you need front desk. So those components we understood, and we could draw those into the condominium. And then the developer had greater expertise sometimes in what size the units should be and how they should look. And there was always conflict because what would sell wouldn't necessarily rent. And a developer has no interest in a restaurant. It's just a cost for him,
exactly.
right? He has no interest in a front desk. That's just a cost for him. So there was always a lengthy negotiating period with which we could come to terms with what worked. But that was a way that we were risk-free because we got payment for the land and we could pay off the loan that we had on the hotel. And it was very tricky in dealing with the banks for us to have an interest in those commercial units at the moment of the closing. So that was always a negotiation as well. Crazy. But we would oftentimes have an interest before the first shovel was dug in the future commercial units.
Wow. So for the Caribbean, it finishes development, right? You're selling the resort or all
you're
right, the plan. But you guys have the guaranteed contract also to operate the restaurant. How long is it? Is that right?
The way commercial units work in South Carolina is you own the unit fee simple. So it's not so much a right we have as you own that just like a unit owner owns his unit. So any commercial area is designated not necessarily for a restaurant. It's a commercial unit, and we put a gift shop in there, a spa,
got it,
a restaurant, whatever we think we need, offices to run the resort, things like that. So,
So with the success of this one, then Long Bay comes around, and you're saying this was structured differently in that this was completely.
Again, the balance sheet of our partner allowed us to do more of the development ourselves and to make the development profit in that particular case. Now, unfortunately, that period, condominiums, like anything else, go in and out of fashion. Prices go up and down.
What year was this?
That would have been around 2000. Think about that. Yeah, I believe that was in the 90s. Okay. That was one of the first. And I would have to go back and look to see exactly when, what.
That's okay. I just want to.
But I can tell you, it was when condominiums had a little dip. Yeah.
So then after those, you kind of have this third-party management model refined, or the idea of partnering with the developers.
Right.
Obviously doing food and beverage or gift shop management in there as well. And then also getting the management contract for all of the condo units. Well, it's kind of, how does that work?
You hit on a key point. Okay. You hit on a very key point. And it is a game changer for our business. No, there is no guarantee. By owning the commercial units, the front desk, the restaurant, the spa, the gift shop, you have a certain ability to deliver a vacation product superior to anyone that's not on property. Yeah. So for many years, it's worked great. There was no real competition, enough competition to keep you honest, but not enough competition that if you did a good job, you couldn't dominate it at a very high level. So from the 90s through the noughties into say, I think the first change we saw was as late as maybe 2016, 17, that we started seeing pressure of losing units to a disruptor. And we will call that disruptor Airbnb or Vrbo, or ways for unit owners to rent directly. And that happened around that time. It was just a beginning. And we've been able to stave that off by delivering a superior product in the end. But the cliched cheese is moving. And we have to respond to that, and we are responding to that.
This episode of The Deal Ranch is brought to you by Reed's Jewelers. If you're looking for a new watch, Reed's has it. They have a large selection of fine Swiss timepieces from Omega, IWC, Breitling, Grand Seiko, Tudor, and Tag Heuer. Since 1946, Reed's has been devoted to customer service and quality. Find a Reed's store near you or shop online at reeds.com. That's REEDS.com by clicking the link in the show notes. As you build your model, and obviously you start to bring on quite a few other resorts and thousands of units over this decades between the 90s and 2016-17 that we're talking about, right? You establish, you already were, but solidify yourself as like the premier kind of property manager in this space, right? Until, well, still, but in 2016-17, what was the first kind of site where you're like, oh wow, this tech platform is an issue, or this, or we have to, because you're going to have to, strengthen your offering too, right? Like any other competitive market. And
I'm not sure about the time because, like so many things, you miss the first clues.
That's right.
You don't catch it at its real beginning. So I wouldn't be a good historian in that arena. I will say clearly by 2018 it was on our radar in a meaningful way, and that we were seeing healthy disruptors, right? Not bad disruptors, healthy disruptors. And we do not see these disruptors as necessarily bad for us. In fact, they might turn out to be great for us because they don't exclude us from participating in their platforms at all. And we are starting to participate in those with great success. And we look forward to developing that in new ways. And that's part of our strategy to react to this competition, which makes for a healthy market, right? That the customer wins.
That's right. A rising tide raises all boats, so to speak, right? So it's a good transition into bringing the company into this more modern day light. And before I want to speak more about kind of your guys' competitive advantages compared to those other platforms and how you work with them. But zooming out a little bit more, so you have pure hotels, right, that you operate, and then you have. So can you do a brief overview just in the service offering, I would say, of the two?
Sure.
Yeah.
We operate in a slightly more complex arena in the hospitality business. We generally are not limited service hotels. We can do that. You might argue that we have some of those, and we do, but we tend to excel in a more complicated environment. Resorts have more going on than a limited service hotel. So even our limited service hotels that we would operate would tend to have tiki bars and things you wouldn't normally see, maybe a gift shop, maybe some other amenity for the hotel. And then you have the pools. We actually have one resort that has 23 pools. So
which one is that?
That's Compass Cove. Wow. The Compass Cove Resort has 23 pools. And that adds a level of complexity to what you're doing. And then you have customers that don't leave your property, generally speaking, like they would in a center city hotel where they're either having business meetings or they're going to business meetings. Your customers, not all the time because they go to events and things around town, but they have more of a tendency to stay on property and go to the beach and spend time on the beach and then back to the pool. So you're dealing with your customers more of the day than a typical hotel. And all that means complexity. Then, unfortunately, you add another level of complexity to a typical hotel in that you have homeowners, and you don't have one owner, you have 150 owners that all have opinions, and they have a right to get your attention and to talk to you about what they see and what they would like. So
absolutely. So how do you, in this very competitive landscape now with the Verbos or Airbnbs, although you as the management company can put the units you guys are managing on those platforms, what are some of the biggest competitive advantages for I buy a condo in there for Brittain Resorts to manage it? I know there's
Right.
a swap.
Easily answered. We are full service. You can literally buy your condo with us and never, I'm not suggesting you do this, but you could do this. And you could buy your condo, never visit it, never see it. And we would put it on the rental program. We would keep you up to date on what needs to be done in the unit. We would do what you need, not necessarily us do it, but we would contract to have done in the unit what you need to be done. We would deliver you the rental check once a month, and we would keep you informed of trends that are going on in the business.
And how do you keep that many, because you're a fiduciary to all of the owners in the building, right? We want them all to be rented realistically at an equal share, so to speak.
Right.
So how do you keep your owners' product, all of them, right, competitive to, let's say there's only 10 other units in the building that are separately owned, right, or operated with property improvement plans? So how do you kind of take a look at the whole, let's say 200 units that you guys are managing in a building and say, hey, we need to, increase the level of this property?
Great question. And you have hit upon a facet of our business that has become very important to us recently. And historically, the way we did that is a very inefficient way by its very nature, in that we would each year pick a few things in order to not have the homeowner have to come out of pocket by too much money. We would pick just a few things that would make the unit better, and then we would add just a little, not a lot, admittedly, but something that they knew they were getting a bang for their buck. So maybe we would buy the couch and ask them to buy the drapes and the carpet. And by that model, we were able to keep the units refreshed. Unfortunately, that's contrary a little bit to how the smarter hoteliers in the country do, because they understand the traveling public has expectations, and that by keeping up with trends, you will get a higher ADR and a higher occupancy for the product. And so we went to a new model whereby we stopped doing the every year renovations and prepared for a major renovation.
Oh, wow.
And we literally escrowed funds from the homeowners to prepare for that, not pay for it totally, but prepare for it. We didn't do the annual renovations for a few years. And then we went to a bank and said, hey, we've got cash in hand for part of this project. We've got assessments that you get the first dollar for. You've got the first dollar out, so it's highly collateralized. And banks either looked at it very favorably or they didn't want anything to do with it. And some banks looked at it very favorably, which I think is the correct way. A condominium is not going to go bankrupt. I shouldn't say that. They can, but less likely than a hotel. And so we were able to finance the project, and then we would promise to pay for 40% of that renovation. A brand new thought, right? It's not our responsibility to do that. But when you run the numbers, we were able to determine that it was in our interest to do that. And by paying the 40% over time, we didn't have to front it.
Yeah.
The bank fronted the money. You just had these extremely low interest rates. And it was, I hate the cliche no-brainer, but what other description would you use for that? So the first one we attempted was a smaller project with not quite the full renovation, which was at a building called the Strand, and it was very successful. Mm-hmm. And as Marriott and Hilton and some of the larger companies very well know, renovation is crucial, and the ADRs and occupancies improved dramatically. We took it to Long Bay and did the same thing. We did a complete renovation there and common areas and changed the name to give it a boost, and that was very successful. So it has been a successful approach. With interest rates rising, construction prices rising, and inflation with some of our core products, it has been more difficult. We're still doing it. We're still attempting to do it. And it is still, in my opinion, the best way to get the full marketing dollars out of your renovation, because there is a marketing component when you do a renovation that's very key to being successful. So,
how common is that an operator is committing that much capital? I mean, it's obviously brilliant on your side to, hey, like, we're going to invest our own cash in this renovation to get a return and drive higher rents, right? For all of the owners. So, for you guys, it makes sense. For the owners, it obviously makes sense doing your fiduciary duty to increase and give them a more competitive product. But how commonplace is that for other operators? That seems like quite a bit of capital to commit to a renovation project from an operator. It's very unique.
It's not only not common.
Yeah.
I'm giving you the I'm giving you the sanitized version of how difficult it is to bring it to fruition. So it is very difficult to bring to fruition. You've got a lot of stakeholders. The boards of these HOAs are the ultimate decision makers and the ultimate, how shall we say, financiers. They're on the line. So they are giving the nod to do this, because you're not, the bank is not going to the end. This is the brilliant, as so often the case, right? The brilliant part of it is also the difficult part of it. That's right. So they go hand in hand. So it's not the individual unit owner that's borrowing the money from the bank. It is the condominium itself, and it's the first dollar that secures that loan from the resources of the condominium. So no individual owner has to be checked or approved for the loan. So in that again, that's the good part of it. It's the bad part of it, because, as they should be, condominium board members are very conservative and very cautious, and getting them to the point to do this is rightly so difficult. It needs to be done in a certain fashion that it just doesn't fall in their lap.
No, I can't imagine. No. So the bank is underwriting, or they're lending the money based on the cash flows of the collection of the properties that you manage.
Correct. Well, actually, yes and no.
Okay.
They're ultimately counting on the dues that each member pays.
Okay.
So it's not based on the business. It's based on the fact that each homeowner has a assessment each month that they pay in, and the bank can claim even the payment before the electricity or water, or they get that first dollar. So it's a great loan for a bank once they understand that.
Wow, how long did that take to get a bank to understand? It seems like a complex deal.
It is, and you can see some naturally flow that way, and some wouldn't, even though they know it's probably true. That's just not their underwriting. Yeah, not where their underwriting lies. So.
Transitioning a little bit, so you, I got still quite a few questions for you, but you guys are doing, it seems like a lot in the last 2, 3, 4 years. Really exciting stuff. Some new hires, sale of some resorts, the acquisition of new resorts, but a big initiative on, I guess we touched on it there a little bit, but a big technology initiative that you guys have kind of focused on the last couple of years. I'm curious how that has really impacted the business or made you guys more competitive, and what led you to that. And then secondarily, if it fits in, it seems like your entire marketing approach to the business is obviously all in-house. It seems like what's written online, which is different than what a lot of companies do. So what has made you want to key in on those two things in the last 3, 4, 5 years? What made that most important to you?
I cannot claim that we have all that in-house. Our chief executive for the principal person involved in our sales and marketing is a young man named Patrick Norton, and he has been key to our evolving technology approach. but we also have partnered with people. My father had a friend, business acquaintance, and I came back to my family business, and his son, my father's friend's son, came back to his family business, and he was in marketing, and we were in the hotel side.
Oh, interesting.
And we partnered with him very early on as he developed with some other friends. And we were part of that, both an owner of the company during part of the time. We ended up selling it because it was probably better. They did what they did. We did what we did. But we stayed with them as we developed channel managers and internet booking engines and those sorts of things. When we were in this niche market, they were able to do for us what the larger companies would not have done and probably shouldn't do, which is to match our unique condominium hotel environment. There are a lot of things about a condominium hotel that are totally different than a hotel. Just to name one big one is a hotel. The rooms are the same. They they look the same. They feel the same. These partners that come in to develop with us have a different idea about how to do that. They want to sell the units. Yeah. And so they need more versatility and variability in the size, shape of the units than a strict hotel room. So right off the bat in marketing, you have a larger number of room types that present all kinds of problems that a hotel would never even face or dream of. But anyway, these companies, Brandon Advertising was one we teamed up with, and a company called Intellistrand, which understood our problem, grew up in our world, and was able to deliver a superior product for what we were doing. So to understand our approach to technology, it is very much partnering with people who understood the condominium hotel business and were able to develop products that had to be altered from the standards. Wow. Keep in mind, revenue reporting in a hotel is quite simple. Mm-hmm. Revenue reporting for 150 or 200 individual homeowners who have to have individual statements, individual 1099s, et cetera, is quite another matter. So that's the technology piece that I think is key. And yes, we do a lot in-house. Patrick has developed a great team. And does a great job, but he also partners with people.
Yeah, maybe that's what I read something or watched an interview he did, and maybe it was the priority on in-house or with good long-term partners. That's fascinating. So
yeah, I'll just add, I think we have always taken the approach. Revenate is another partner that has done a great job for us as we've sought to, again, this slightly different hotel environment. They have been willing to accommodate us and listen to us and, hey, can we do this? And I think that's a key to our technology success.
Wow. Two things, switching gears a little bit. In 2021, there was this sale or partial sale of an ownership stake in maybe 7 different resorts to EOS. And then in 2022, it seemed like there was, I don't know if new capital was attributed to it, but you guys also got the new contract or partnership with 4 resorts and 2 large management companies. So what happened in those couple of years, and what was the strategy?
Yeah, I think
on those?
the EOS deal is the key there and the big one. We, prior to COVID, we as a family business had all of our chips in a small little littoral town in South Carolina. And we thought it might be wise for us to take, to diversify a little bit. And we had 2 ideas there. One was to maybe raise some capital, take some money off the table, and more fully explore the renovation ideas. So have some capital. The 40% that we were putting in over time worked very well. Well, what if we emphasized more and we could drive more revenue by improving the resorts even more? So we were looking for capital to both improve the resorts and our model, but also take some chips off the table, which was past the 60-yard line age-wise, and we thought that was wise. So we hired a very boutique investment banking company out of Cleveland. They were not hospitality-oriented, but then we weren't really mainline hospitality to begin with, so their boutique nature fitted us better. And we worked with them to bring several parties to the table, which they did very successfully. We were ready to begin the process of choosing one, and COVID hit. And so all of those family offices and or investment components, rightly so, said, hey, we need to take a break. Independently of that, through a group out of Florida, EOS was brought to the table and expressed an interest in what we were doing. And during that process, my brother, who negotiated the deal with EOS, came and asked, hey, with all that's going on, maybe we should up the ante here a little bit and sell a majority to EOS. They had a good understanding of our business. They owned Kingston that had condos, so they were knowledgeable about what we were doing. I think strategically, they understood that maybe keeping a little bit of our interest in the game was probably a good idea. So we came up with a 75-25. We retained 25% of the ownership, and they took 75. They've been a great partner. We have learned a tremendous amount from them. They are a sophisticated New York private equity firm, and they've taught us a lot. I think we've taught them a little, maybe, about how things operate in this little
town.
provincial town. But they've been great. We work well together, and that's probably the most significant thing. We've gotten our objectives met, and we're very happy with that. And then the second prong of our efforts was to grow out of Myrtle Beach.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned earlier, we're a family business. We have no children that are expressing a strong interest in it, so we're trying to develop a plan with our key employees, our key executives, to continue the company. And I think to do that wisely, we should grow out of Myrtle Beach. And so we're just started that process. We feel like it's going well. We've got a couple of we should be announcing here shortly a couple of not acquisitions, but either third-party management or sliver capital opportunities that will, I think, play to that.
Fascinating
Growth.
I want a couple questions on there, but one on the EOS deal. So without giving away the intricate details or deal structure, but like, how is a deal structured in that regard? So you own the front desk and the management contract for these select amount of rooms. Are you just selling a portion of the cash flow and then you guys are still operating? How does that work exactly?
I think EOS has taught us something in acquisition, that they don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. They are very involved in these. They it's not that they've given us the keys and said, hey, we'll pay you for these and you go run them. It's not that simple. They bring a lot of knowledge to the table. They bring a lot of oversight for obvious reasons in their position with investors that they need to report to. But they own the underlying businesses. So they own a new company was formed. We own 25% of that company. EOS owns 75% of the company. They are calling the shots, but they are using, I would say, the good parts. Let's assume that they're letting us do the good parts of what they know. They have brought some changes and some progressive ideas to the table, which we've hopefully participated in, and together we've built the management that we have today.
Wow. In 22, after that, I wanted to ask about beach vacations and then also the co-branded Courtyard and Spring Hill Suites, because it's a big
Correct.
development for our skyline here. If anyone's a local or you come through, it's arguably maybe the nicest building that we have on the ocean front here. It sticks out no matter where you're driving. So were those timed up together, the development of that, and then also did you buy Beach Vacations? What was...
Yeah, both of those are similar stories as to how they came into our interest, or how we got interested in those. And I'll speak maybe to Beach Vacations first, because it was earlier. We in Myrtle Beach, the golf business became important in the late 60s and 70s, and it grew into a very big part of Myrtle Beach, which allowed us to stay open and thrive in the spring and fall, not just the summer. Mm-hmm. And so my family was involved in a company that built a golf course because the hotels couldn't get tee times. So the golf courses were so popular that they would tell the hotels, well, we'll sell you one tee time on this day. And we had plenty of customers that wanted tee times. So it's no secret that in Myrtle Beach, golf courses started springing up. Mm-hmm. And my father was involved in a company with approximately 12 other families, most of them hoteliers in Myrtle Beach, that built a golf course called Myrtle Beach National with Arnold Palmer in the early 70s. And that started a golf course company. Mm-hmm. So we had a hotel, we would sell a golf package. Again, we had restaurants, so we served breakfast, dinner, golf, room, all packaged. Wow. Someone from Detroit could fly in or drive and enjoy a package of golf with his buddies, and that became a very important segment of our business. During that time, golfers learned as they repeated their trips with groups of golfers that, hey, these condominiums are more comfortable for our groups. We have a living room where we can play cards and have fun, and so we had more traditional hotels, the Chesterfield Inn, the Sea Island Sandpiper, and the Caribbean, for example, were all hotel rooms at the time. And so there was a little company that we noticed was doing a lot of packaging off the ocean in these condominiums, and it was of interest to us to understand it. We just wanted to understand, why is a golfer staying with Beach Vacations instead of us? Right. We're their natural choice. we're the good looking date.
That's right.
So by buying that company, we understood that business. So we learned a lot about the golf business and the golfers. So the second part of your question about the Spring Hill Suites and the Marriott Courtyard, for the same reason, we're watching Myrtle Beach. We're watching who's successful, who's not successful, what do the traveling public want, and a tremendous portion of the traveling public wants consistency, and there's no mystery that Marriott, Hilton, and the other brands have served the public well by giving them a product that they know when they get there what it's going to be. And so it's not hard to watch historically other communities similar to Myrtle Beach develop brands in a logical fashion, right? They start small and then they grow, and that's going to happen. That has happened here. It's going to continue to happen. And so we did that project to understand it, to learn. We had never been part of a branded hotel company, and therefore we had to do it from scratch. But we did develop that with MB National, which was the golf course company. Yeah. We expanded the golf course company over the years to where when we sold it in April of 2015 to a Chinese company, we had either owned or under management over 20 golf courses. So that company had grown well. And as part of that, some of those owners owned hotels, as I had said. They were hoteliers that helped build that company in order to get the tee times. And we ended up merging with one of those families or a group of families that owned the breakers. So we merged with them and before we sold the courses.
Oh.
After selling the courses, we kept the legacy golf course company, MB National, kept the breakers, and we still own that. And my family was a part of that company. And we developed the dual brand from that company. And it's been a great experience. Marriott is fabulous to work for. They're certainly not pushovers, and they know what they're doing, but they have taught us a lot, and we are going to continue in that vein to do more branded properties for sure. We have a sister site exactly like that one next door to it, and we are pursuing a branded property there.
Because is there two breakers on each?
Breakers is more than two. Breakers is a hotel, a condominium, another condominium, and then a hotel across the street, and then the dual brand. So the dual brand sits independent for obvious reasons. On each side of it, on one side is a hotel, the Breakers. On the other side is the Breakers Paradise Condominium, which is another one that we actually developed. We did develop that one. We didn't parse that out to another developer.
Interesting. One seemed like big move for the company. You made it seemed like a pretty big hire last summer of Christy, Chief Development Officer.
Correct.
And somewhere, maybe in her an article about you guys bringing her on board, it was like her goal or focal point is to scale the third-party management business and to double the amount of resorts, which seems like a huge goal. So I know we touched on that a minute ago, but I think we can kind of maybe dig in a little bit more there as we wrap up. So what is the bigger focus? Obviously, kind of Christy's joining the team, but what is her focus as well? But where is that going to look for Brittain Resorts, like regionally? Is it going to be towards Florida or inland? What's the plan? That's a big goal of doubling. That's awesome.
Christy is an important element. Another gentleman from Charleston, Michael Tall, started earlier before we hired Christy to help us develop a plan to grow. And Michael has been a part of a very successful Southeastern management company. We have been very thrilled to have him on board, and he helped us to identify the need for someone like Christy and to put a plan together in all aspects of not coming out too early and being ready to grow before we actually launched it. So naively, perhaps not, we drew a triangle and we said, where should we target? And we thought anything from Rehoboth or the beaches, Maryland, down to the Keys, over to Gulf Shores, and then back up to Maryland creates a triangle in the southeast, littoral in nature, meaning resort-ish. We pushed the hypotenuse out a little bit to include Gatlinburg. Although we're not in Gatlinburg, we feel like the customer there, the nature of the resorts and how to service them is very similar to what we do, that would be a good target market, and that's what we've done. And it's not that we wouldn't go out of there. We think we would have expertise in any resort. If we ran across something outside of that triangle that made sense, we would certainly consider it. But that's the target.
And is it going to be third-party management in more kind of just standard hotel or branded hotels, or is it's going to be also this what makes Brittain Resorts, which is these complicated Condotel products?
We think the nature of the Condotel fits us extremely well for more full-service branded hotels. We naturally fit into that category because of the complexity of the condo. The condo is limited, and so we have a couple of prospective companies that do condominium management that we're talking to, but that is not necessarily our focus. We will probably look to resort hotels with a fairly complicated base to operate.
Wow. In wrapping up here a little bit, is there anything in the history of the business, or is there anything as far as your line of service that we didn't get to touch on that you think would deserve any light that we didn't shed on it?
It would be wrong, I will say this, it'd be wrong to think of us as innovators, and we're not pretending to be so. Mm-hmm. We were never on the cutting edge. We always watched success, both in other areas and here. Many of the people that I'm talking about that we helped us were the people that innovated. S.M. Johnston, for one, George Buchanan, Sam Scalise, all people who had vision for the future that we were able to take advantage of. So if I've sounded like we did all of this, it would not be truthful. But we were able to hook our wagon and grow with them.
I like it. Is there any, besides the expansion that we covered there, is there any other service or kind of different asset type or operating type that you guys have never done that you find interesting, or that you would want to maybe branch into in the future?
There are some aspects that are tangential to our business that we would potentially look at. So condominium management is something we know and understand very well. So whether it's a hotel or not a hotel, that is a thought maybe we should consider. We know how to please a board. We know what their objectives are. We know how to deliver a product for them, regardless of what they're delivering. Residential, rental, we can do both. So that's a business we could consider. We haven't so far, but that's something we're thinking about.
Interesting. In your journey over all these decades, seeing the family businesses evolve since you were a kid and then coming back into the family business, being in this town that's experienced tremendous growth, especially recently, but then in the 90s when all of these developments are going up. Who do you think, and maybe you mentioned them, but who do you think helped you the most along the way to really learn the business, or to grow your skills here, or grow into a leader here?
Obviously our dad had a big influence. So my mom and my dad, my mom worked in the business, in addition to raising us, but my mom and our dad had a great work ethic and great values that allowed us, I think, to do it. The men I mentioned were very important to us. They brought both their strong balance sheets, but also their mentoring and business acumen that they had, as well as techniques and vision for these niches that we moved into. So I would certainly salute them. I'm sure there are a lot of others that have helped us along the way, no doubt.
No, I think that's perfect. I think that's a good place to wrap. I thank you for doing this, Matthew. Thanks for coming on. Is there anything else that we missed that you wanted to touch on before we wrap up?
No, I think, you had great questions. They hit at what and who we are. So
I appreciate it.
You did a good job.
Anyone listening, obviously go to BrittainResorts.com and see the properties that are available. But thanks for coming on. Appreciate it, Matthew.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.